What's up, guys? Curtis 20 and the crew here. Now, here with Psycho Dad, and we're actually going to tell you guys an interesting story from an interesting time in our life and a very, very memorable and fun time in the gaming industry. So, if you guys remember, a lot of you probably don't because you're probably real young. Even I have trouble with remembering some of it because I was so young. But back when the 360 was coming out, Microsoft held their launch party called Zero Hour, and it was one of the greatest launch parties for a game console ever. And I think maybe the last one ever because they don't do cool stuff like this anymore. I wish they did. But Microsoft was trying to get everybody hyped up for the 360 because they knew that they were going to have a big, excruciating battle with Sony, and they had to come out guns blazing if they were going to try to win the generation because they had just gotten their butts kicked by the PS2. So they knew for one they had to get the 360 out first, and they had to come out guns blazing, getting the hardcore gamer amped up with an awesome console and kick-ass exclusives. So that's exactly what they did. They held this party out in the desert, out in California, called Zero Hour, where they had a bunch of gamers come out to this. It was like a hangar out in the middle of the desert, and they had kiosks of 360 set up and all the 360 launch titles that you could come in and play. And it was just overall, it was a good time. They had food, they had drinks, they had music, they had they had the big projector and they were playing funny stuff. We got to see some early footage of the first Gears of War game. That was pretty cool. And we have just a whole bunch of stories about it. And I'm going to let my dad tell some of the stories, but pretty much we got the memo that the 360 was coming out and they were having this party. So Psycho Dad decided to take me out to California. We live in Wisconsin, so we had to drive all the way across the country to get there. But we were going to do it because we are hardcore Xbox fans, and we weren't going to let anything stop us. So Psycho Dad pulled me out of school for a week. We packed up the car and even went with my mom bitching up a storm about it. Psycho Dad said, "Screw it, you're not stopping me from doing this because this is something I love." So we just drove and drove and drove. Finally, we got there, and it was the greatest time of my life. And the thing about the 360 launch is that was a damn good launch because that was probably the last true gamers console. Ever since the 7th gen and ever since like the PS3 and everything after the 360, it's been more so about the console playing movies or Netflix or all that kind of garbage, and it's gone away from the hardcore gamer. So that was just a good time to be a gamer, and it's really sad the way things have gone. I remember the Xbox One launch was nothing even remotely close to the Zero Hour party launch for the 360. There wasn't even anything going on. It was just you go to GameStop and you pick it up and you go home. That was the extent of the Xbox One launch. So I'm gonna turn this over to Psycho Dad, and he's gonna tell you guys some funny stories from this event. And then once he's done, I'm gonna come back and say a few more things. But the stories are the best part of this. So Psycho Dad, do you want to tell them these awesome stories we have?
Sure, I'll start from all the way the beginning. So as you said, we live in Wisconsin and we drove all the way to California, and my wife was just bitching. She's like, "Oh, you can't do this." She was pissed at me while we were driving there. She's like, "We don't have a lot of money to get all the way to California." And I was like, "I don't give a shit, bitch. I'm going. You're not stopping me." So I just ended up throwing all of it on my credit card. And when we got there, Bill Gates was there. I have a picture of me and him somewhere. Gotta find it. So long ago. And while we're at the party, there was some guy who brought his grill and he was just cooking everyone food. It was actually some really good food. He made some mean burgers, mean hot dogs. I think he had a couple steaks. I got one of them. Pretty nice. And also, they had alcohol at it. And that is my cup of tea. So while we're at the party, I was just getting blitzed. Margot was out there and she kept bitching at me. She's like, "You've had too much." I'm like, "No, get back, get away from me." And obviously, my son was 6 at the time, so a great example I'm setting for my own child. But, anyways, They had all the launch titles that were out, and we were playing all of them. They had Call of Duty 2, Peter Jackson's King Kong, Quake 4, some of my personal favorites, and Perfect Dark Zero, which I actually do like Perfect Dark, but Call of Duty obviously was the one that just sold me on it. So I obviously got a 360, and when I was trying to check out, the dude at the register, he's like, "All right, just wait a second, sir." And then I put in my car, and he's like, "No, not now." And I was like, "Well, motherfucker, when am I supposed to put it in?" So he just kept going back and forth for like 5 minutes. I was slightly hammered at the same time. I'm trying to insert my card and press the buttons, but yeah, it just kept going back and forth with me. I'm like, all right, then tell me when. He's like, all right, now do it. And I put it in, I guess, a millisecond, 2 seconds. He's like, oh, you did it again. I was like, oh my God, dude, come on, fucking figure your life out and tell me when to put the damn card in. So eventually, I got it and I purchased it. And then they also had the first Gears of War. It wasn't exactly finished yet, but we got to see some, we got to play some of it, and it was really impressive to me. And Gears of War, the OG, when it finally did release, I did get that on launch because I was just blown away with what they showed me. It was just dark, gritty. It's a third-person shooter, third-person cover-based shooter, and it was just revolutionary at the time. But after the party, it had our long journey back to Wisconsin, so Margot was still bitching at me when we are going back. She's like, "Oh, you got so hammered out there, you embarrassed us." I'm like, "Bitch, you didn't have to come. I just took you." And then she shut the fuck up for 100 miles and she kept bitching at me about every little thing. "I'm hungry. I gotta go to the bathroom." Like, geez, you need me to do everything for you, don't you, bitch? But when we got back to Wisconsin, I had a little fun with myself in the bedroom. I was just locked in there for days on end, and I was just jerking it and just leaving it hanging around on the floor. And then when Margot came in, she's like, "What the fuck is this?" And I was like, "Bitch, get out! I'm playing my fucking Xbox." And she went out to the living room and she just slept out there. I was in the bedroom just up all day, all night, just cracked out of my mind. And eventually Thanksgiving was coming around, and my 360 addiction was just so severe that when everyone was there, they're like, "Come on, Paul, come out." And I'm like, "No, I'm not fucking coming out. I'm busy." And then they just kept bothering me, so I went out there and I'm like, "All right, all you motherfuckers, get the fuck out." And then Margot was like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "They're getting out of my house. I'm busy. I am doing something that I enjoy. Fuck Thanksgiving. I'm going back to my Xbox." So I went back in and just went back to playing. But looking back on it, yeah, that was the right thing to do. I was just so addicted, and those people were pissing me off. If you guys haven't seen it on the Thanksgiving where I destroyed the turkey, yep, pretty much a similar situation to that, except everyone got thrown the fuck out, and I was just having a blast. But basically, the events that transpired around the 360 launch. And I do wish that when new game consoles drop, it was more like that, but here we are. It's just kind of fallen off. It's just game consoles are treated as another form of media device, which, yeah, it's disappointing. It's meant for gamers. If you want to go watch them, use your phone or anything else, but that's the story behind the 360 party and what happened.
Yeah, guys. So that's actually a comical recollection of what happened. So if you missed it, Psycho Dad was actually leaving Comrex. He was obsessed with playing the 360 when we got back, and he was just leaving cum rags all over the floor because he was so addicted to it he couldn't even leave the room to throw them away. So Margot came in and she was like, "Paul, you're cleaning all this up," and he would be like, "No, I'm not, bitch." And so I'll just go back to like the actual 0 hour party. It was the best thing I've ever experienced in my entire life. I got to play King Kong. I got to play Quake 4, Tony Hawk, American Wasteland. That was awesome. Condemned. That's still one of my favorite 360 games of all time. And a lot of people don't remember this, but for the VIPs who went to the 0 Hour party, they gave out a free code for an achievement called 0 Hour VIP. Kind of like if you remember the Xbox One had the Day One achievement. It's a similar achievement, and I believe less than 200 people in the world have it. So I'm so thankful that we got it. But the only problem is it was on our old account, and that account got banned. So I lost access to it. But it was the greatest thing ever. And I remember a year later when the Wii and the PS3 came out, there was nothing even close to it. So the 360 will always be remembered as one of the greatest consoles ever, with one of the greatest launches ever. And so I think that's all we have to say on our story from the 360 launch party. Let us know down in the comments below if you guys enjoyed our story. And if you guys went to the 360 launch, let us know your story down below. So thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you guys on the next video.